Clorinde is very underwhelming, and this might be intentional by HOYOVERSE. Now, I wanna make myself very clear that I love Clorinde and I'm not hating on her. This is just my perspective, and I genuinely feel she's a bit underpowered compared to the rest of the characters. But why is she underwhelming? Well, to understand that, we have to first understand what makes a DPS good in the first place. So, for me, a good DPS character must satisfy one or more of the following criteria. They should have good personal damage, they should be relatively easy to play, and they should be versatile in terms of team building. If we take a look at Arlecchino and Neuvillette, two of the most powerful DPSs in the game, they both satisfy all three of these criteria. Both have incredible personal damage without any external buffs, but that is not the case for Clorinde. Her personal damage is a bit lacking to say the least. On top of that, her multipliers are also in the lower end, but that is made up by her Ascension 2 passive. But it is quite obvious that her personal damage is not very significant, but that is to be expected because she is a reaction based DPS, specifically aggravate reaction that increases the base damage of Clorinde. So her having lower multipliers is not a big deal, but this also means that she is only viable on aggravate teams to bring out her true potential, whereas Clorinde's direct competitor Raiden Shogun can be used in various ways, such as a driver in the national team or as an off-field hyperbloom trigger in Dendro teams. So Clorinde does not quite satisfy the first criteria, but her damage on an aggravate team is pretty good, especially when she is paired with Fischl. Then you will have a constant stream of lightning strikes. And not to mention, Clorinde's elemental skill has a very short duration of only 7.5 seconds, which is a big deal considering all of her damage is coming from her elemental skill. On top of that, it has a very long 16 seconds cooldown, double the amount of her skill's duration. That makes her rotations very tricky to manage, and to rub salt to the injury, she stays stationary at a place when shooting her pistolet shots and is very vulnerable to enemy attacks. And also the fact that she doesn't have any kind of interruption resistance at C0, she is easily interrupted or you have to manually dodge attack that can result in huge DPS loss considering the long cooldown of her elemental skill. But her elemental skill can be used to reposition, but that takes a lot of skill to do that many of you don't have. So to summarize, her elemental skill has a very short duration and a long cooldown, and she is very difficult to play, or else you have to use a shielder to not lose out on her damage, and all of this combined makes Clorinde not very easy to play, so she does not satisfy the second criteria as well. But you know what she does best? Aside from shooting, she can fit in a lot of different teams. So the biggest issue with Arlecchino or any Bond of Life character is that they can't be healed, so it makes them not being able to use Furina's damage buff and the Marashuse Hunter set. But in Clorinde's case, she can. Clorinde heals herself when she uses her elemental skill if she has a Bond of Life worth 100% of her max HP or more, and it heals for a good amount, and this healing combined with Furina's minions will give you a significant amount of fanfare stacks, increasing her damage and enabling a quick bloom team that will result in more damage when comparing to a strict aggravate team. Although this team is more risky to play, but the rewards are also very high, and she can also use the Marashuse Hunter set in this team. But that is not all. She is a electro DPS, so she can benefit from Chevreuse as well, who is a very good support for pyro and electro units, but she restricts you to only play pyro and electro characters. But that is not an issue because you have access to Bennett and Fischl, who can boost Clorinde's damage even further, and Fischl can also do very good damage, or else you can swap out Fischl for Thoma for his shield so you don't get interrupted, and at C6 Thoma gives a little bit of damage increase, which is quite nice. So if we compare Clorinde directly with Raiden, she has the same number of team options as Raiden and is more flexible because of her shorter rotations, and most importantly being able to use Furina's fanfare damage buff. So Clorinde satisfies one of the three criteria, which is good but not great. And don't get me wrong, she is very good but not on the same level as Arlecchino and Neuvillette, who sort of raised the bar on what a good DPS is, and her overall kit and design feels like she was supposed to be released earlier in Fontaine before the overpowered duo, and her being released just after Arlecchino makes her look like very underpowered when she is clearly not. And if we forget about them, Clorinde is definitely in the top end of DPSs, slightly below Alhaitham and Raiden, mainly because of her short skill duration and long downtime and low personal damage. But I hope you understood why Clorinde feels underwhelming to play, and if you enjoyed this video, then maybe consider subscribing, and in the meantime check out this video. See ya next time.